Hi, it's Beverleigh here over at Crafting Chaos, and I'm starting another series for you, and it's going to be the Critter card series. And today's critter, as you can see, is a cat. That's the file we're going to be creating from the shapes in the basic shape library. The main one we're going to use is an oval, so I'm going to select the oval and put it onto the mat. I'm going to go to Show Properties and I'm going to resize the oval to 2.36 by 3.43, and notice that the Maintain Aspect Ratio button is unchecked so that the hip width and the height can be manipulated independently. So that will be the cat's head. The next thing we're going to create is the cat's muzzle. So I'm duplicating the oval by pressing D on the keyboard. I'm going to change the first one to grey, and then I'm going to resize the second one to 1.28 inches by 1.71 inches. And then I'm going to move it into position to see how it looks for size. I'm going to make sure it's at the front of the file and then shade with white. So that's how we're looking. Okay, next step, select the oval and duplicate because we're going to make the whites of the eyes. Resize to 0.87 by 0.77 inches. This will form the white part of the cat's eye. I'm going to move that to the side, press D on my keyboard to duplicate. I'm just clicking off and clicking on it to make sure that when I press D I duplicate, and now I have the two whites. I'm now going to duplicate the white of the eye for another time to make the pupil, which I'll colour black, and I'm resizing those to 0.58 by 0.51 inches. I'm going to shade them black using the flood fill tool to black. I'm going to duplicate the black and place it on the white area of the eye, and you can see that the face is now starting to come together. Okay, I do tend to fiddle around with the file so that I can see how it's looking on the machine, so I have an idea what it's going to look like. The next thing we're making is the muzzle, so I've selected a plain heart and resizing it to 0.61 by 0.78 inches. This will make a nice sized nose for our cat. Okay. The next thing we're going to be making, once we've satisfied my urge to put everything where it needs to be in the right order, so laying the eyes underneath the muzzle so that I can see them just peeping out from behind. Liking how that's looking now, just move the nose up a smidge. And that's where we're up to now, so the face is really coming together now. The next thing we're going to create here are the ears, and we're going to select a teardrop shape. We're going to resize it to 1.21 by 0.83 inches, and we're going to need ultimately 4 of these, so I'm going to duplicate it, but I'm going to shade it pink first, then duplicate. I'm going to duplicate it again, so turn it to black, duplicate it, so I have 2 pink and 2 black, so that my inner part of the ear can be pink. So these will be the other way around on my finished card, but I'm just wanting to check their size for now. And I think once I've got them angled in and positioned nicely on my card, there will be the correct size for our cat. Okay, so that's the ears. The next thing we're going to make is the bow for on the cat's head. So I've just duplicated the heart that we made for the nose, and I am changing the size to 1.13 inches by 1.13 inches. I'm going to duplicate it, edit and flip horizontally, put the points of the hearts together, edit, align them centrally, and then edit, process overlap and weld. That has created our bow for our card that is going on the cat's ears. Now we're going to need a keeper for our bow, so I'm going to make that a circle. So I'm going to shade it pink and resize to roughly 1 inch to start with, and then see if it needs just a minor adjustment to fit the bow. So I'm starting at 1 inch, trying that. Feels that's a little too big, so I'm just going to resize it slightly, and I think it's about 0.87 by 0.87 in the end, and I'm happy with that. Okay, now I'm going to make the cat's body. So I clicked on the face, duplicated the oval, and now I'm changing the size to 2.53 inches by 4.02 inches. I'm placing it underneath the cat's head and sending to back. I'm now going to make the cat's back paws. So I'm duplicating the oval. I'm going to need 2 of these eventually, but I will resize the oval to 1.59 by 1.32 inches. I'm going to rotate it by 45 degrees, and that will give us a nice angle for the back paws. I'm going to duplicate it in the position and flip it on the vertical axis so the angle is the same, makes it easier for me to place. I'm then duplicating the circle from the bow, and I'm resizing them to 1.59 inches. Sorry, 0.62 inches by 0.62 inches circles for the biggest of the pads. Then I'm going to make 6 mini pink circles, duplicating them and changing the sizes to 0.27 by 0.27 inches. So I'll hit the duplicate key 5 times to give 6 in total, and position those on the other sides of the paws for the nice little pink pads. The next thing we need to deal with are the cat's front legs. So I'm choosing a rectangle that's slightly rounded corners, changing the size to 6 inches by 1.19 inches. This will be too big, but I will deal with that as you see. But this is just a starting point, and somehow it's not quite picked up the 6, so the main take off the main aspect ratio, make it 6. As you can see, that's far too big for the leg. I'm going to shrink it down till it's about 2.5 inches. I'm going to select a square, position it towards the top so we get a nice straight edge. Just making it a little bit bigger, so it's maybe about 2.75 in the end, the leg length. And I select the square and the leg and process the overlap and remove the overlap. Just testing the length there. I'm going to change the colour to grey, and at the same time change the body of the cat to grey. I don't know why I ended up with it green. Oops, undo that, and check the length of the leg. Ultimately I will need 2 of those. I've now got a little pink circle which I'm going to resize to 0.40 inches. I'm going to use the circle to produce the little gaps in the end of the paw to represent the toenails when it's placed on top of the pink one. So I'm going to select the small circle and the leg, process overlap and remove overlap. Then I'm going to duplicate by pressing D and put that on the edges of the bottom of the paw to make 2 further little notches again, which will show through pink when it's on top of the pink layer. I'm just lining them up at the top so that they're even, and then just making a minor adjustment with my keys till I'm happy with their position on the edges or the corners of the bottom of the paw for the cat. I'm going to select both of the small circles and the grey part, process the overlap and remove overlap. And then if I move those away, you can see it's cut them, leaving those little notches at the bottom of the paws. So I ultimately need 2 of each, one of the pink solids and one of the grey cut out. Obviously the grey needs to be on top. So I'm going to send the pink layer behind or the grey layer in front, and I'll do the same with the second leg, and then I'm going to make them align vertical and horizontal so that you can see the effect of having that one layer on top of the other, and then you can see the little pink paws. And I'm going to group that and send it to the back where it needs to be, or backwards until it's under the cat's head and positioned nicely. There you can see that it looks like it has little pink toenails. So I just need to realign, undo that because I moved it with that before I'd grouped them together. So I'm just grouping them together temporarily so that I can move them into position. And I do all this just to make sure I'm happy with the proportions of the shapes and the rest of the cat. So now I'm sending them to the back, again sending it backwards one layer at a time until I get to the right layer, just repositioning the head a little, and I think we're going to say that that is reasonably okay. So the next thing we're going to make is the cat's tail, and we're going to do that by selecting an oval. I'm going to fill it in dark so you can see it. Then I'm going to press D on my keyboard to duplicate it, or you could go right click and duplicate. And then I'm going to make that oval white so you can see what's happening underneath. So the white one is on top of the black one. I'm going to edit and remove overlap, and then we'll be left with a black piece that is like a tail shape, and delete the white oval. Now this is going to be positioned towards the back of the cat, so I've moved it into position and sending it behind and positioning it like so. The next thing we're going to do is break apart the individual colours of the cat and move them to separate areas on the mat so that it makes cutting the cat much easier when you've got all the colours arranged in colour order dependent on your colour scheme. So now you can see that I've got all of the colours all lined up more or less together, all the black ones, the pink ones, the white ones, the grey and the dark grey, which will make for easier cutting later. Okay, now I'm going to add some faux stitching. To do that, I'm just going to make sure all the colours are the right shade to match the ones we're doing. So you would select all the colours in the group that you want the faux stitching on, go on to the add and offset line function, make it inward and round, and then say OK. You then click, and with your shift key on your keyboard, click onto the other inside parts that you've just created and you will make it a drawing line and then select the 4-stitch line as you prefer. As you can see, that's now put a 4-stitch line around those. You would repeat that then for the rest of the shapes that you would want to add 4-stitching to. As you can see now, I've added the 4-stitching to the shapes that I would prefer to see the 4-stitching on. I'm now giving the file a name. I'm going to download it. I'm overwriting my project because I started with a new mat. And then I'm going to say OK. Then I'm going to download to my Mac in my case, or it could be a USB, or in your case it could be via the Wi-Fi to your machine. If you've liked the video, please like, share and subscribe, and see you in the next part where we will assemble the card. In part 2 of the video, I will show you how to assemble the paper piece in parts to get an effect something like you can see on the screen now. Hope to see you there soon. Thanks.